people that I have met on YouTube that are in my life today, and they're very good friends of mine, they understand that, they understand who I am because they deal with me on a daily basis. And what it appears that what you're trying to make it look like on YouTube is a clown show, basically. Like everybody that I talk to in my real life that knows about these videos, these reaction videos, they laugh at it because it's literally like a clown show. It's nothing but speculation and innuendo. That's all it is. So, but yeah, I mean, I've met some awesome people off YouTube. But if me deleting some reaction videos about Gentry and Sons and just trucking makes somebody not want to do business with me, or makes somebody not want to be my friend, I'm not going to shed a tear. I would absolutely never shed a tear about it. So it's like, who cares about the way it makes me look to a bunch of middle-aged old men, fucking overweight, sitting in their truck, spilling fucking whatever the nasty Cheetos, getting Cheetos dust and Monster Energy drinks all over their shirt. I don't care what those kind of people think about me.
He certainly cared enough to make a fucking 3-hour reaction video about it, though. Does that sound like a guy who is emotionally intelligent and in control to you guys? I don't know.
Good morning, YouTube. How's everybody doing today? Me, I'm doing pretty good. I had one of those annoying nights where it's like you sleep, but you sleep so hard that when you wake up, like you're ready for a nap already, but you gotta go, you know, like I hate that feeling. It's not bad when you got like a free day and you can just relax, but when you gotta work, it sucks. But that's just how it goes sometimes. I'm hoping once the sun is like fully up, I'll snap out of it, but who knows? We'll see. But anyway, guys, I have to apologize. I said I was going to react to Tommy's video, and I kind of like changed my mind on that, you know. But the reason I'm changing my mind is because I was discussing this with Billy the other day at the Discord, and the only real way to actually like react to that video in a way that makes sense is I would have to react to the whole thing at once. And I would essentially have to do exactly what Tommy did, is like just listen to the video and then pause and then, you know, comment on what he says. And I mean, the video itself is 3 hours long. So like my response video is going to be like 5 hours long, 6 hours long, right? And then if Tommy were to respond to that, his video would be like 13 hours long. You know, like it's going to start a daisy chain of fucking marathon movies. Like, and a lot of the stuff that he said in the video, you know, it was just the same nitpicking stuff that he said before, right? You know, like you make a good argument and you'll focus down one little thing and try to make that invalidate your argument. You know, he spent most of the time trying to make me seem disingenuous, which is nothing new, right? Like I don't need to nitpick that every time. Just to give you an example, right? I said his truck was a piece of crap and he should have known better, but because I said I thought he bought it from a farmer, but he actually bought it from his boss, you know, oh, gotcha, now your argument is invalid. And it's like, no, the point was the truck was a piece of shit. It doesn't matter where you bought it from. But of course, you know, that's Tommy's MO, right? You know, if you say something's white, he'll say, no, it's actually off-white, you're wrong, and act like that, you know, somehow invalidates it. But whatever, right? You guys know his MO, we all do. So I'm like, do I really need to spend 3 hours reacting to that? And then the icing on the cake, at the end of this 3-hour rant is he throws, so what I like to call our parachutes, basically like somebody has you're worried somebody might have a good argument, so you want to weigh out to save face. So for example, in this case, at the end of his 3-hour rant, he goes, I'm bored of these guys anyway. And so basically what he's doing, right, you can tell by the fact that he made a 3-hour response video that he's not bored of us if he's going to invest that much time. But what he's doing is if I come out with a burn of a video, right, an absolute banger of a video, he's already given himself that parachute, so he doesn't have to respond, right? He can pull the ripcord and be like, well, I already said I was bored with him. It's like a sneaky little way to save face. TC Boggs used to do that all the time, right? If somebody called him on some bullshit, he would just parachute out. He'd be like, well, you know, everybody thinks differently. And it's like, no, they're giving you facts, and you don't like it, and so you just you parachute out. So I'm like, am I going to spend 6 hours reacting to this video where he's probably not even going to react back because he's already thrown that parachute out, right? And a lot of the people in the Discord were like, I couldn't even get through the whole video. So half the shit I'd be responding to, none of you guys would have watched anyway. So, I don't know. If people really want me to do it, I guess I'll do it because I'm here for an audience. Which kind of fits the theme that Tommy was going for towards the end of that video. Because he stated that, you know, I was an emotionally stunted individual based on my childhood. And I feel like the claims of me being a bad father that he made, and well, the claim, I should say, and the emotional intelligence claims, or in this case, the lack thereof, and then also some weird like threats of violence, like roundabout threats of violence, which I'll get into. Like that I felt was worth reacting to. So that's what I'm going to react to today, instead of the whole video, right? Like just what I would deem like important enough to react to. And so near the end of that rant, he went into a tangent about how, you know, I've stated this publicly, and I will state it again, right? Where I'm like, I'm not challenging people to fights. I think that people who get on the internet and like threaten violence to people, knowing full well they don't have the capacity to follow through with the threat, or even if they, you know, they're misguided in their belief that they can cause a bunch of physical harm to people, right? And he says, you're not that guy, after saying that he's fully aware that I've already just explained myself as not being that guy, right? And remember, he's calling me an emotionally stunted individual, right? That I'm in my teenage years, based on how I speak, based on how I present myself, on an internet platform full of trolls, right? We'll get into that, right? And so he said this like vague, threatening thing where he's like, you just haven't met the one yet, or eventually you might meet the one walking through these truck stops. You're running your mouth, right? And then he implies that if I call him a bitch, that implies that I have to slap him in the face if I were ever to see him in person. So we're going to break that down, right? My ego is not tied to this YouTube channel, right? I'm not going to die for this YouTube channel, right? It's entertainment. I'm not going to shoot or kill anyone over this YouTube channel, right? If somebody does get upset enough at something that I've said to the point where they need to attack me physically and I lose in that fight, then it is what it is, right? It's my ego isn't tied to this YouTube channel. And I made that point again and again and again. Right? And again, I don't do this for pride, right? It's not an ego. I don't make these videos because I have to be better than someone, which he also acknowledges, which is weird that he would make the point, but he acknowledges what I'm saying. But I don't need to be better than anyone, right? I don't want anybody to fail. I don't want to destroy anybody, right? I'm commenting on things that I see and explaining how I feel about it. But I'm not calling people's jobs. I'm not contacting people off the internet, right? I'm talking shit online. And I know 100% the space that I'm in, right? I'm in he said it himself. He said, all of you guys are a bunch of Cheeto eating, energy drinking losers, essentially, is what he said, like covered in Cheeto dust, right? So, if I'm in a community of Cheeto dust covered energy drinkers, and myself included, right? He lumped us all in together, but of course not himself, right? He's always outside of us, right? He's always the exception. He stands above us while patronizing me by saying how noble I am for not thinking I'm better than people. And the same video where he talks about emotional intelligence and my lack thereof, right? You guys can see the picture that I'm painting here, right? Just the irony. And I love irony, right? Because it's funny to me. But again, I'm in a community of people who talk shit online. Now, I don't know if it's because of he's indoctrinated by his prison time or something, but in the real world, right, the company that you're in dictates your behavior in that situation, right? Like, to assume that when I get off this YouTube video that I'm going to speak to, like, my wife or my boss or a customer that I'm delivering to in the same manner that I would on one of these YouTube videos is naive at best, right? And I would hope that he knows better, right? Which implies that he's doing exactly what he accuses everyone else of doing, is he's trying to spin a narrative, right? It looks better for the narrative that he's spinning that I'm an emotionally stunted individual if he can spin it in a way where it would appear that this is like my demeanor all the time. Which is a fair point. I mean, it would be a good argument to go back and forth with, but he's already put it out there that he's bored of me, right? So, like, he makes that argument and then says, well, I'm bored, so he doesn't even want to stand on it, essentially. So, no, right? I don't intend to challenge people to fights. I don't intend to be violent or threatening to anybody, right? And if somebody else is so bothered by what I say that I end up getting my ass kicked for it, I mean, it says a lot about their emotional intelligence on the other end, right? I mean, people say a lot of things throughout the day, and sometimes things can get extremely disrespectful. And, you could fight every single person that causes you any amount of disrespect throughout your day. If I was to ram every car where somebody honked their horn at me or flip me off because they thought I was in the way, backing up across the street or something, right? Like, like it's not the hood. We don't have to act like that, right? Some people do, right? He is right. Some people do, and maybe it's himself, right? Like I said, I don't know. It was very vague in what he was saying, and I get the impression from how he speaks about this community that he feels that he's above it, right? Or at least if not above it, at least separate from it, right? He considers himself outside of it, even though he's participating in it. And the reason that I say that I don't care if somebody does want to fight me is because it's a lose-lose for them, right? So let's say it is you, Tommy. Let's say you're the one, right? You're waiting to come and find me at a truck stop. You're going to kick my ass, right? There's only two possible outcomes, right? You kick my ass, and now you're the emotionally stunted individual who was so threatened by the guy who said he didn't want to fight in the first place that you fought him, right? That's a bad look for you, and I can absolutely use that to my advantage, assuming I'm not killed, right? And if I am killed, I mean, there goes all my worries, right? Like I don't have to worry about shit. I'm gone. The other option is you lose the fight, and now you're the guy who got beat up by the guy who said he didn't want to fight. And again, I've been doing this for a while, and nobody has hated my guts to the point where they've wanted to cause me physical harm, regardless of how disrespectful I've been. And I've been extremely disrespectful. But I've also apologized to people in the past, you know, where I felt that I've gone too far. But I felt that those people were worth apologizing to. Like some people, like there is a level of pride to that where I'm just like, fuck you, dude. I'm not going to apologize to you because I know you wouldn't reciprocate, right? And I say you, but I'm generalizing. I'm not saying you, Tommy, but I'm just generalizing. But it's just it's been a long time, and I've never gotten that from people, right? I've never had such an intense hatred, even though I am disrespectful sometimes in my videos. Ultimately, most people kind of tolerate me, or they end up like almost being entertained by it, right? So that whole violence thing was a weird argument. It was almost like you were passively aggressively like venting your frustrations, you know. You really wanted to say I'm going to come and fuck you up, but you knew it made you look emotionally stunted. And so you tried to passively aggressively do it, which is also a level of emotional um, stuntedness, by the way, since you were on the subject, right? And then your claims that I was a or sorry, your claim singular. I keep doing it plural, right? But it was a singular claim. Your singular claim to me being a bad father is that I held a gun wrong in a picture. And Billy made a great joke about that. He said, "How can a guy who can't legally own a firearm, or in a guy who's never raised a kid, have anything to say about your usage of a firearm and your raising of your child?" And I thought that was funny. I can't take credit for that joke. That was Billy's joke. But to be fair, right? He made the point, and I don't have an excuse, right? That is an immature way to hold a gun. My daughter wasn't born when I took that picture, right? Which is, well, I'll say everything first, then I'll say why I think it's funny. So my daughter wasn't born. I was alone in the room, right? I had my phone propped up on like a rolled up blanket, and I just set a timer. And the gun wasn't loaded, right? Again, that's not an excuse, right? Like if you were on a range and you were waving a gun around like that, even if it was unloaded, they'd probably kick you out. They would definitely kick you out. So yeah, it's immature, but at the same time, you had to make assumptions that one, my daughter was in the room or around, and that there was other people present that could have been injured, and that the gun was actually loaded and can hurt people. And again, it is immature handling of a gun. But I mean, if that's the worst thing that you can think of that makes me a bad father, I mean, I would say that I'm doing well as a father then. If the only thing that you could come up with is something where you had to make a whole bunch of assumptions and nitpick something inconsequential, which is what you do, right? That's essentially what you do. Then I'm good, right? Like I'm all right. I should be an okay father. Hopefully a great father, but at least okay. And then you talked about emotional intelligence, right? You said I was a stunted individual, that I'm stuck in my teenage years based on how I communicate, right? And obviously, it is kind of a matter of opinion. I mean, there is some science to this, right? There is a lot of psychology of this, but I can't claim to know it 100%, right? I can claim that I know somebody who knows a lot about it, but me personally, I've not studied psychology, but I know a lot about it, if that means anything. But how people communicate doesn't dictate their intelligence, whether it's intellectual or emotional. And the reason I say that is because there are people out there, right, that, for example, there could be someone that speaks in Ebonics, right, very heavily, but could be very knowledgeable on a subject, right? And it would be emotionally stunted of yourself to assume that because they were communicating in a particular way that they didn't know something or they were somehow less than, right? And part of that emotional intelligence, right? The irony of the emotional intelligence is you have to understand emotions in order to be successful at drama, because you do kind of have to manipulate a reaction. And there is a level of empathy to it. Right? When it comes to you, there's not a lot of leeway, right? You're an adult, you choose to participate in this. Um, you kind of do, from my perspective, you have a superiority complex just based on how you speak. Like, you talk about how you're outside of everything, like you're separate from, you're the exception. I'm not going to give you leeway, right? Like, your ego is ripe for poking at. But part of that empathy, you can see it in how I handled the Big Belly Bumble situation. Right? I could tell, and I'm not taking a shot at them, right? I'm not trying to belittle them. I'm not trying to insult them. I'm just being honest, right? I'm explaining what I saw, right? They did not seem to be a good fit, I guess would be the nicest way to say it, for this drama, right? Attacking them in the way that I would attack you or Gentry or anybody else, right? It's not a good fit. And again, I'm trying to be as nice as possible. I'm not trying to insult them. Like, that's the nicest way I can say it. But attacking them in the way that I go after other people on YouTube, it wouldn't have been appropriate, right? And you failed to see that, right? You saw that content and went, well, she put it out there. I'm going to talk about it, right? And I'll be honest. I had plans to do the same. But I thought about it for a minute and I said, I don't think this is appropriate. Right? And I get it, right? It's contrary because I portray myself to be this heartless asshole, but then it's like I do make certain concessions with people. And you can see in my comments, based on how I spoke with her, I was firm in, like, you're not going to tell me how to run my channel. I'm not going to change channel names for you. But I wasn't as rude to her as I would be to, like, you or Tim Gentry or somebody who I feel could handle the abuse. And that is emotional intelligence, right? And if somebody like them were to insult me, I might poke fun at them, right? But I would do it in a very lighthearted way, just because of how I perceive them as not being someone who can handle the abuse like some of the other people that we talk about in the drama sphere, right? That's emotional intelligence, right? And maybe I carry myself in a way that would make you think about me in a way that you do. But in the same vein, you also imply that you're aware that this is performative. So you know that this isn't really me, but then you spun the tale anyway that I was emotionally stunted, while also, that's being disingenuous in a video where you're trying to show me as disingenuous and you as somebody who's factual. And I mean, all of this is pride, right? The reason that I've been, I mean, I don't want to say like successful or anything, like but the reason that I've made it as far as I have in the drama is because I'm not, I'm not geared by my own pride, and I can see the pride in others, and I know how to poke at it. I'm not proud of any of this, right? You said some things. You said when you show people this, they laugh at it because it's so ridiculous. Why would you show anybody this? I don't need anybody's validation from this. I'm not going to go home to my wife and be like, look at how dumb that Tommy guy is. Could you imagine? Right? I don't talk about this outside of people who talk about this. Right? I'll talk to like a lead or Billy or some of the people in the Discord about it because they watch it. Right? They're directly involved. But if somebody says, hey, that's kind of dumb, I'm not going to involve them in it. Because arguably they're right. A lot of this is childish and petty, but it's enjoyable, right? Like, when it comes to drama, like stuff like the paparazzi in tabloid magazines wouldn't exist if people didn't like drama, right? But I do this because there's an audience. It's my personal belief that if you were doing this just without an audience, it'd kind of make you a psycho. Right, you talk about the attaboys and stuff. The only reason to make a video like this is so that the people that are watching it are entertained. If I was just making these videos by myself, it would be honestly kind of weird. Which brings me to something you said. You said, I don't give a fuck about any of these subscribers or any of these drama people and what they think, but then you make a 3-hour reaction video. So you made an entire reaction video not because you cared about the people watching. That was purely for yourself. That's ego. And it went over your head in a video where you're talking about other people's egos and emotional intelligence. Right? I thought you were naturally bald, Tommy, but now I'm beginning to think that so much shit goes over your head, that's why hair won't grow. I don't know. But I just found that interesting, guys, that he would choose to focus on all the inconsequential stuff, and then at the very end of my segment of his video, right, which I was like a lot of it, which is kind of cool. Usually I'm not like the face, right? I'm always like a side character, right? I usually support somebody else's argument, right? I'm always the small channel, which is fine. Like I said, right, like I know this isn't a money-making scheme for me, right? It's just something that I do for entertainment. But it was interesting to be like the number one guy for once, right? Like I got 2 hours and 17 minutes of a video. That was neat. Even though it was, obviously it's like negative, but that's what we're in, right? And that's part of like the appeal to me is like it's not that, and this is gonna sound very contradictory, but just just listen to the if I'm wrong, people will tell me, but for me, it's not about like I don't want to hurt someone's feelings, and I get it. That's the most contradictory statement that I could make about this entire community. But it's not about just being mean to somebody, right? It's about the mental gymnastics, right? It's about triggering somebody into a response so that you can then try to counter their response, right? Maybe not necessarily like a battle of wits, but it's fun to me to to challenge myself by going against people's arguments, right? Being argumentative on the internet. I enjoy it, right? It's petty, it's childish. I'm 100% aware of that. I would never try to justify it as anything other than that. But that's really what the appeal is, right? At least for my end. And again, if nobody was watching, if I was irrelevant as far as the drama goes, I wouldn't do it, right? I'd be like, all right, I guess I'm not entertaining, and I would just move on, right? Because again, my pride isn't in this. But that was the end of that 2.5, almost 2.5 hour rant that he did about me, and that's what he chose to end it with. And again, at the end, he like tried to patronize me, and I don't know if he really feels that way, or if he was trying to like manipulate like a divide and conquer type thing, right? Like trying to sow some discontent amongst our little drama group. I don't know what it was, right? But it came across to me as patronizing, right? To spend almost 2.5 hours spinning a narrative that I'm a disingenuous, emotionally stunted little brat, essentially, right? Like a teenager. And then at the end to go, well, you're actually talented and brilliant, dude. You're so smart, right? It's noble that you don't think you're better than anyone. And then right after saying that I'm noble for not thinking that I'm better than anyone, he goes, "Why do you hang around with those people? You're so much better than them." Well, you already said it. I don't think I'm better than anyone. I'll hang around with all kinds. Right? Obviously, if I don't like you, I'm not going to hang around with you. But I don't care where you are on a social scale, a class scale, and a monetary scale. Like I don't care, right? If I enjoy what you have to say, then I don't have a reason to not hang around you. Right? And again, that's essentially poking at my pride. And I told you my pride is not in this, right? I'm not trying to be a better drama channel than Billy and Elite. I'm not trying to be a better drama channel than you, right? I'm just entertaining. It's unfortunate that some of the stuff that we talk about is like real. I wish it could all be entertainment, but unfortunately that's not drama, right? Like I've tried the nice guy route. I've tried the nice guy drama route, right? It doesn't get you anywhere. You don't get an audience. And so this is just the community we're in. And do I have to be disrespectful in every video? No, I don't. But sometimes that's the tactic you need to manipulate a response. And you can see that I've completely shifted gears on a whim. Right? I could continue the abuse. Right? You made your video, I got the response that I've been pushing you for. I could have easily kept it going. I could have just started motherfucking and bitching you right away at the beginning of this video. Right? I could have been offended by your characterization of me, right? But that would be disingenuous on my part, because the character that I present on YouTube comes across that way, right? Like, it's understandable. But I get the feeling that based on the performance that I make, that some people, yourself in particular, start to get a superiority complex, right? Right, like it's the subtle things that people say where you can tell that it's almost like a backhanded comment, like, oh wow, you're relatively intelligent, as in like not as smart as I am, like stuff like that. So I don't know, like, if you had just done the nitpicking, like, I probably would have just responded to that and like kept it going. But then when you get to the end of the video and you just make a complete fool of yourself, I'm like, everything else kind of goes out the window. This is what I need to focus on. And again, for the audience, just think about what he's saying, right? He's saying that he's not emotionally intelligent enough to not fight someone over words on the internet, whether it's in a ring or on the street or in a truck stop, right? He's not emotionally intelligent enough to control his pride. And I can get into that, right? This is my working theory, which explains a lot about what's going on with Tommy, right? And it's only my theory, right? Obviously, he's probably going to dispute all of it. That's what he does. Anytime you get close to the truth, he'll do what a Sean Ghostface used to call moving the goalposts, right? He'll just shift the narrative so that you're always wrong, so that he doesn't have to face that truth, which he claims to care so much for. He's not emotionally mature enough to handle the truth. But here's my working theory, right? So he claims he has a boss, but he's pulling his own trailer, and he's always running the same lane as his newfound friends, Martin and Alice. So my theory here, the reason why he suddenly shifted on YouTube, is because he's leasing that truck from the guy that he's working for, that Ryan Winter or Brian Winter, whatever the Facebook profile was, so that he can use it to pull his trailer, and Alice is brokering loads for him, right? Or he might even be signed on to Alice's authority. I don't know. But it's one thing to like run across people in parking lots here and there, but to be to follow each other so closely that they just happen to be around when your truck breaks down, same rest area, same truck stops, same customers, like to have that same interaction all the time, even running roughly the same lane, right? It's not common, right? I've done this long enough to know, like, it just doesn't line up perfectly like that. To be able to just convoy everywhere together. So my working theory is he's leasing or borrowing, renting to own, one of those three options, that truck from his quote-unquote friend, who he doesn't care about, by the way, right? He, like, put his license plate out, doesn't hide anything, right? He's got a wide open Facebook, and the dude likes Tommy's posts. So it wasn't hard to find, but it just doesn't make sense to me why you'd be working for somebody else and pulling your own trailer, and then you just happen to be running with a bunch of YouTubers all the time. Like, look at it this way, right? Like, I'm driving my boss's truck. Would it make sense for me to go buy a trailer but not have my own truck? Like, maybe my boss might give me a little bit more pay because I'm using my own trailer, but I mean, I still need his truck to generate any revenue, right? Like, it just, and I'm not saying this is what it is, right? It's only a working theory, and I'm sure he's going to deny all of it, but that is my working theory as to why Tommy actually changed on YouTube, right? And he kind of touched on a little bit, right? He said he had like a business opportunity. But he could have said that a long time ago. But again, his pride doesn't allow him to just say what it is. He has to spin a narrative that makes him look like the superior one, right? That makes him look somehow better than the rest of us. And again, this last part, that's all theory. But I think there's some validity to that. I don't know, guys. We'll see. We'll see what you guys think in the comments. Anyway, that's what I have for this one. It still ended up being pretty long, even though I didn't react to a 3-hour video. But we'll see you in the next one, guys. If you like this content, please subscribe to the channel. I don't need your money. It just, for some reason, the larger the number of people next to my name is, people believe you more. But anyway, guys, we'll see you in the next one.